Ah, you've returned. But be warned, this chapter is not sung in triumph, but whispered in tragedy. Before the 12 labors, before the legends etched in the annals of time, there was a man, not yet a hero, not yet a myth, but a husband, a father, a soul seeking peace in a world ruled by wayward gods. He had carved a life from the wreckage of divine favor. He built a life rooted in humble grace. But peace, as you shall soon see, is of no consequence to the gods of Olympus, and it is here, in the fragile stillness between joy and judgment, between the lines of peace and madness, that our tale begins to descend. Before the hearth, before the home, Hercules was a warrior, a son of war, baptized in the cries of battle. He served Thebes in times of peril, not as a mere soldier, but as a force unto himself. Where phalanxes broke and kings fled, Hercules stood, and Thebes, long assailed by raiders and ancient beasts, came to know him not as a man, but as an unbridled force of nature. Not only did he face armies, but monsters born of chaos and the gods' neglect. Hercules once confronted a man-eating ogre descended from the mountains about the outer reaches of Thebes. Bent on bloodlust and chaos, the monstrous being terrorized weary travelers for years. Hercules tracked it into the wild, wrestled it bare-handed into submission, and returned with its body bound to an ox cart. The people spoke of him with reverence, but more than that, with relief. For in a world where the gods played frivolously with the innocent lives of mortals, Hercules made the people feel safe. He refused gold, refused thrones. He asked for peace. And when King Creon offered him Megara's hand in gratitude, Hercules accepted, not as reward, but as refuge. For a time, Hercules knew something the gods could not touch: peace. He had laid down his club, not in surrender, but in choice. He no longer fought to conquer, but to cultivate. He trained the city's youth, not to worship strength, but to understand it. In his wife, Megara, he had found a companion not drawn to strength, but to spirit, and in the children they raised together, he saw something worth protecting, not through force, but through presence. In his humble life of harmony, there were no beasts to slay, no wars to win, but a peaceful existence in the city he called home. He became a name spoken without fear, but in reverence. He became not just a protector, but a participant in the life he had once only defended. But Olympus forgets nothing, and Hera least of all. And Hera, queen of the heavens, bearer of fury, certainly had not forgotten. The son of Zeus still lived, still breathed mortal air, raised mortal children, loved a mortal wife, as though his father's crimes had not etched into the ether. And that to Hera was something that could not be overlooked. She would not strike with spear nor plague, that would be too swift, too clean. She would choose a weapon steeped in subtlety, one that unravels from within. Madness, a divine unmaking, not seen, not named, only felt. It began with silence, not around him but within. Laughter twisted, familiar faces took on unfamiliar shapes. Touch became threat, memory blurred into illusion. He no longer saw his wife. He no longer heard his sons. The world around him gradually warped into a hellish, chaotic scene, but only in his eyes. The gods called it madness, but madness is too simple a word. This was an unholy unraveling, the slow, surgical undoing of reason. And it was not only rage that guided his hand, but a euphoric confusion of sorts. And when the veil lifted, the silence was permanent, and no cry of strength could undo what had been done. There was no trial, no exile ordered, for what punishment could equal what he had already taken from himself? The gods were silent, the people motionless. And so he departed, not with chains around his wrists, but with sorrow etched into his soul. He walked into the wilderness, not as a warrior, but as an echo. The man who once bore mountains now bent beneath a weight no muscle could carry, a weight no sinew could bear, no penance could relieve. He did not beg for mercy. He did not curse the gods, he did not weep. He simply vanished into the bones of the earth, into the land, into the wind, into deep unspoken regret. And there, amid the hush of unmarked outskirts, he became something less than legend and more than man. A ghost not of death but of unbearable memory. His steps eventually brought him to stone, not the stone of battle, but of divination, the place where the gods speak not in voice but in vision, Delphi, where vision, not voice, binds the fate of mortals. It was said that Apollo, god of light, spoke in symbols here, in riddles carried on sacred breath. Only those hollowed by sorrow could hear him clearly. Hercules did not come to plead. He had no plea left. He did not come for forgiveness. He knew that was a grace beyond the gods. He came seeking sentence, a shape to his ruin, a burden to match the weight already pressing upon his soul. He knelt before the ancient stone where the veil between worlds thinned to a whisper. His head bowed, his hands open, his heart, a wound still weeping. And then she came, the oracle of Delphi, pale as mist, her breath deep with the gods' fire. When she spoke, it was not her voice, it was that of Apollo's, sharp, unwavering, and absolute. 12 labors, each one impossible, each one a blood tithe to fate. Not punishment, not penance, but purification. The gods would not destroy him, they would remake him, through trial, through terror, through toil. There was no applause, no divine promise, just the path, and he would walk it, not for Olympus, not for honor, but because there was nowhere left to turn. Hercules was to serve his cousin, King Eurystheus of Tiryns, a man brittle with envy, drunk on titles yet hollow within. He had neither the spine for war nor the soul for wisdom, and yet, by divine command, he was chosen to rule over the one that could move mountains. It was not justice, it was design. The forces that be had no interest in fairness, only in retribution. They would not break Hercules with thunder or sword. They would do it with obedience, humiliation, submission to a man unworthy to carry his breastplate, let alone command him. 12 labors, not merely tests of strength, but assaults upon the soul. Each one a crucible, each one a scar yet to be earned, a reckoning written not on parchment, but in flesh, bone, and memory. There was no applause, no laurel crown, no whispered oath from Olympus, just a path, jagged, endless, and carved with impossible weight. He would walk it, not for glory, not for absolution, but because it had been bestowed upon him. And, in the silence between gods and the whispers of a tormented soul, he accepted. Hercules was broken. Not by monster or blade, not by trial or time, but by the unbearable weight of what could not be undone. His strength, once praised, once feared, could not shield the ones he loved, and so for the first time he bowed, not in surrender, but in reckoning. Yet from the ashes of ruin he rose, no longer a prince of Thebes, no longer merely a son of Zeus, but something else, something forged in silence and sharpened by sorrow. The gods had drawn their line, the path had been set. 12 labors, each one a myth yet unborn. And so begins the long ascent through pain and penance. When next we meet, he will descend into a darkened valley, a place where courage falters and blades snap. There waits a lion whose hide no spear can pierce, whose eyes gleam with the hunger of ancient curses, and with it, the first labor of a legend. Until our paths cross again in the realm of myths and legends, remember to stay curious, stay inspired, keep exploring, and may your journey be as enriching as the timeless tale of Hercules.